Don't be sad when I don't grab her.
My chair's too low down again.
It is now 5 o'clock. We will begin the workshop for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, August the 30th, 2012. We will remind everybody this is a live telecast. Please remember to read over our minutes before the meeting on Tuesday. Dennis, you'll have the prayer, and Alderman Green, you'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, we do have a presentation, and we're going to bring that to the front. We did ask Johnson Controls to come back after their last presentation to narrow some questions that we had and narrow this down. And at this time, it will be a discussion item, number 22. We are going to move them to the front. No one has any objections with that. So with that being said, gentlemen, I'm going to let you come to the podium, and I'm going to turn the program over to you.
Good evening. Thank you for having us back again tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm going to, once again, my name is Joe Bond. I'm with Johnson Controls, and Dennis Siegert is with me again tonight. I'm going to let Dennis kind of go through a little more information of what we have found and what since the last time we met, and give you a little better idea of what this program will look like for you.
Okay.
Dennis?
We took the data that we had last time and we expanded on it. So, first thing is what is the vision? And this is verb like you're giving it to yourself. So, what is the vision of your water metering program? What are we doing now? Why would you even consider an upgrade? How would you procure it, and how would you pay for it? Okay. So, next slide. One more time. Okay. What is your vision of your water metering program? It's pretty simple. You want your meters to be accurate. You want to ensure that you have the data to support the billing and handle any complaints. You want it to be cost effective. You want to ensure that the delivery and billing are as efficient as possible. And most importantly, fair. You want to ensure that every customer pays for what they use. We want this to be equal across all customers that are using the service. What are we doing now? When we looked at the water audit at the last meeting, the water supplied is 955 million gallons a year. And it includes an error adjustment for the production meter, which is currently perceived as over-registering. The authorized consumption, which is what you sell plus what you meter but don't bill, which is most likely for this facility, I would expect, is 786 million gallons a year. So the difference between those two numbers is water loss, or water that you've produced that you're not getting paid for. Okay? That falls into two categories, and those are real losses and apparent losses. Real losses are just that. It's water on the ground. Generally, the most important thing to remember, though, is gravity is very effective on water, which means rarely, unless it's a very large leak, does it come to the surface. It frequently will go down, which makes it difficult to find. Apparent losses is going to relate to, in this category, as metering inaccuracies. I used 4% in the program, but when I look at the difference between the amount of apparent losses as a ratio against real losses, I believe there's more to be found. We need to pull meters and test them to prove that. So I took a very conservative position. I didn't want to say something that would set your expectations too high. Your non-revenue water is 192.2 million gallons because it also includes a production meter over registration. The percent of water non-revenue is 20%. So what I'm saying again is for every 100 gallons of water that you purify and send down a pipe, you know where 80 gallons are. In fact, 79.9 gallons. You know where they are. We don't know where the others are. We got to go find them. Next slide, please. Another thing to consider is your meter profile. You have 11,500 meters, and some of these numbers are rounded, so 11,500 accounts in your system. When I looked at you putting in approximately 200 meters per year, that made me realize that about 2,000 of your meters are going to be 10 years old or less. I'll prove that. We will prove that when we go into the engineering study. We'll look at serial numbers, or we'll look at date of install, and we'll determine that number actually. But for this 15,000 foot analysis, we took that number and said that 200 times 10 is 2,000 meters of your 11,005 are 10 years old or less. we would want to try to preserve that asset. Those are new enough that they have life expectancy left in them. Why change them out? Let's just put a radio on them and read them remotely. Your replacement cycle at 200 meters a year is a greater than 50-year replacement cycle. AWWA would tell you to replace 10% of your meters per year. Most, if not all, cities in the U.S. do not follow that. They can't. It's very expensive. When you look at meters, you should really consider them aging based on consumption and not time in the ground. So when you look at consumption, like a 5/8 meter might have a life expectancy of 800,000 to 1 million gallons. So you look, that's a better way to look at it. But still, you've got a lot of older meters in the ground. That's what that says. Okay? Your staff, back please. That's okay. A little jumpy, aren't you? Staff profile. You have 5 vehicles and 5 meter readers. If you were to have an AMI system, automated metering infrastructure, and you could read the entire metering population from City Hall with the push of a button, you would gain some efficiency there. Our expectation is you would take a portion of that staff and have them do something that you just can't get to right now, which should reduce your overtime costs and potentially reduce your maintenance costs for unplanned repairs that are cropping up because you can't get to planned maintenance. Does that make sense? Okay. Next one, please. Why would you consider replacing these water meters? 83% of your meters are greater than 10 years old, and that's the AWWA standard of replacing 10% per year. Your current water loss is over 20%. Water revenue is being lost due to inaccurate registration. Because sewer is billed from the water meter, sewer revenue is being lost because of the under-registration. Water production cost is being lost due to leaks in the system. That is not as valuable as water and sewer revenue. Okay? But it is considered, and we will show you that. And your current reading method is inefficient considering the technology today. Why would you have 5 people walking around when you could either drive around in a car or push a button and read it all from City Hall? Okay? Project considerations. Based on the water audit, and the following is being considered. Of those 11,500 meters, 9,500 are over 10 years old, replace them. Okay? Keep the other 2,000 because they're relatively newer and just radio automate them. So what the next bullet says is install 11,500 AMR reading devices, radio reading devices. Evaluate the value of a meter data management system. These new systems can record hourly readings. So you could have a lot more data. If a constituent walked in and said, I don't believe my water, I use that much water, you could then profile their account by pulling up some information and show them on an hourly basis what the consumption trend was. So they could see that the neighbor was using their water to fill the neighbor's pool. You know, why do you have 20 GPM consumption from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. every day? See what I'm saying? You could look at something like that. So you can't make wise decisions if you don't have good information. So that's what that's all about. Install a system-wide leak detection. That would be a permanently installed leak detection system where your utility folks could go to a website every day and look for indicators of which meters in town, which locations in town have a 72-hour period where they have heard a leak signature for 3 consecutive days. Once it hears a leak signature for 3 consecutive days, it'll turn that flag red. You can then determine and prioritize those leaks and dispatch your crews to go after the biggest leaks first. Instead of waiting for a leak to surface or a hole to open up and a Chevy Tahoe to go in it, you can then have maintenance based on good information and know where to go.
And we can also use this information from our discussion the other day with the actual residents. If we see within a 2-day period, if a residence, you know, we know what they're using.
Correct.
And it will let us know, and within 2 days we can let Mr. John know, hey, something's wrong, we're seeing a high usage. They could be filling their pool, but they could say, I don't know.
You're right on, Mayor. There's several good bits, and I'm going fast. I know that. There's several bits of data I haven't even pointed out. With an AMI system, customer service capability goes way up. Now, from the constituents meter to the house, you'll know if there's a leak on a daily basis. Okay? Then the city can pick up a phone and call someone and say, look, it looks to us like you have not had a 15-minute period in an entire day where you have used 0 water. That tells us you most likely have a leak. So a leak flag pops up, the system transmits it, you can see it. It also looks for things like tampering and reverse flow. If somebody was trying to inject something into the water system, you would see that. So there's a lot of great stuff that comes with these systems. We will also test all large meters for accuracies and if they are the right type and size for the application. As businesses move in and out, the consumption pattern of the replacing business may not be the same as the previous business. So the meter could be undersized or oversized. You need to match the meter to the consumption pattern of the business, thereby you get the best reflection of their consumption and the recording of their consumption. We evaluate the value of a valve exercising and location program for the city and evaluate the distribution mains for leaks in their current condition. The project would have no change orders, is turnkey, with a guarantee to make the city whole if the project savings do not materialize. It has to. That's the way the legislation reads. We have to be able to give you a project that meets that criteria. The only way there would be any change order to the project is if we're installing meters and somebody builds a brand new house and you say to Joe, hey, can you get that house while you guys are doing, then he can add that and charge you for that one house. But when we put a project together, it's going to be 11,500 meters of these sizes, these types. We're going to put in that many meters. Okay. Next slide, please. Here's how it works with a graphic. The before is what you're spending today. And if you wish to envision that first tube, that $1 million tube, envision that as revenue and operational expenses. Okay? We're going to find a way to reduce your operational expenses and increase your revenue with a more accurate meter, and that's what pays for the project. Okay? At the end, if this project is a 10, 12-year payback, at the end of those 12 years, all of those savings are going to float right to your bottom line. So you can spend them on a skate park or something else that you direly need. You know, infrastructure improvements, a clarifier, if you wish, whatever, you know. But that's the way it works. Therefore, we would never want to install anything that doesn't have a life expectancy that's longer than the payback period, and that isn't longer than the payback period. So the meters are going to have a life expectancy of 20 plus years. So you don't want a project, in my mind, longer than, say, 13 to 15. I want 5 years of that green bar on the right there. Okay? You can jump in here if I'm saying anything wrong. Okay. How does this thing pay for itself? 5 primary sources I put up there. We'll probably find some more, but there's 5. Increased meter reading efficiency. You can push a button and read the town or send 5 trucks out. There's some savings right there. Also, what those readers are going to be doing other than reading has a value that you're not getting today. That falls under that category. Increased meter accuracy. Again, I only put 4% in here. We believe it's a bit higher than that, but I'm not going to give you false promises until we can test meters. 4 to 6% increase accuracy increases your revenues for water and sewer charges currently uncollected. Really, right now, you have uncollected revenues, but you don't know they're there because for every gallon that goes through, you measure 0.92 gallons or 0.96 gallons or whatever. Benefits of right typing and right sizing and typing for consumption patterns. That is all about, I call them C&I customers, commercial and industrial customers. They're your bigger customers. It's imperative that you match their meter to their consumption. Okay? If a church is put into a building that used to be a bottling plant, the church will never use the water at the rate the bottling plant does. I'll give you a very simple example. Okay? Leak detection and repair, that's simply going out there and capturing the production cost of water. We put 25 grand per year in capital contribution in here to buy this thing down to 13 years. That's only 50% of your current budget. I think you got 50 grand in your budget. So we put some in here to buy it down. Again, I don't know that it's a 13-year project until we actually do the engineering and test meters and come up with the actual benefit. I feel pretty comfortable it's going to be that or less, if that makes any sense. Next slide, please. Here's a very simple business case putting it all together. And here's the assumptions made. Of 11,500 meters, 2,000 only get radios. The remaining 9,500 get replaced. The large ones get rebuilt or replaced, okay? Because big ones are expensive, okay? If they can't accommodate a radio, we'll have to replace them, okay? That comes up with the number at the top. By the way, everything is in here. Financing, everything has to be in here because it has to be a turnkey project, okay? Capital's on the left side. The next column is what we believe the water and sewer meter consumption increase could be at 4% pickup. Okay? Operational savings for some reading efficiency and not having to buy meters because you're putting all these new ones in. That's that column. The next column is what we believe the production cost of water that could be saved with a leak detection system. That adds up to total annual benefit. The debt service against that 4.6 million is $421,000 at 2.5% interest. And I know right now that depending on your bond rate, I've seen interest rates right now in the current market under 2%. So I've got extra in there. Again, we take a conservative position. We've got consultation and verification services of 3 years. That is us proving to you this is doing what it's supposed to do. If you want to be from Missouri, we can run that all the way down and do it every year. But I'm spending savings to prove something to you. You see my point? So you can take a conservative position. Some folks don't test at all. I don't think that's wise. I think it's important that you got to get proven that the thing is going to do what we said it's going to do. So we've got 3 years. And in the third year, the number goes up because that's a full test again. That's when we're going to pull residential 1-inch 2s and big meters, and we're going to go do a bunch of testing, so that's why the number went up dramatically in that year. And then we just stopped, because we said, it's proved, it's been 3 years, you guys are going to be comfortable by the end of 3 years and say, this thing is working or it's not. Okay?
But it's important to note that if you do want to continue that verification,
yes,
it is there for you. And if the guarantee's carried out regardless, then you do 3 years.
So right now, this project flows at 13 years, it's $218,000. So that means somewhere in the middle of the year 13, it's paid for itself and you're cash positive in that year. Okay? The other important point to make is the first payment on performance contract work is not due until the system is installed. Let me say that again. So if you said, I want to do this tomorrow, and it took us 14 months, 12 months to install this, you wouldn't even make a payment until after that time. Okay? Next slide, please. What happens if we implemented improvements to buildings and traffic signals? Robert's back there. Robert came out here, walked some buildings, looked at some traffic signals, and he said, I can find another $45,000 in energy savings. Okay? Which would pay for the efficiency improvements that he would make for you. Okay? Just like the water meter project, those benefits and savings would pay for their upgrades. That's guaranteed. And we would also look at opportunities for improvement. They are investigated and verified during the engineering phase of the project. He's making 15,000 foot based on his knowledge. He has to come out, he has to take meters, he has to measure stuff. But he's done enough of this long enough, he feels pretty comfortable. And knowing Robert, 45 is probably more like 60. Yeah, because he's a pretty conservative guy.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Next slide, please. So when you add the things together, we believe between water meters, AMI, building efficiency, we believe we can find about $400,000+ a year to pay for a project. That's what we believe. Okay, the effect on your budget is none. None. Because we have, your operational budget has to go down. Revenue because of meter efficiency has to go up. Unless everybody's going to move out of town, which I don't expect that to happen. Okay. That's going to materialize.
I think that's an important slide to make sure that everyone understands that this is we build these projects for the purpose of budget neutral. It's an overused term. Sometimes we hear a lot, right? But the savings and the benefits that come with this project, whether it's the water meters or we're doing upgrades, we're going to make sure that your annual loan repayment back to that is less than the savings are, $1 less or more, right? We want to make sure that your budget is not affected by this. It's money you're already spending today on the buildings, and it's money you're losing out on potentially with the water action. Does that make sense to y'all? This is it's a concept that sometimes can be. We go through it too fast because we do it every day. We want to make sure that you have time to ask questions.
Like if LED technology was just somebody actually figured it out tomorrow, and we could replace every fixture in here with LEDs and they were 5 watts. Incredible savings, right, Robert? It would be incredible savings if we could get all these lumens and every fixture now is 5 watts instead of 25 or 30 watts. Same principle. Things have changed. Technology never changes. Technology has improved to a point now that it can pay for some of its own replacement. That's exactly what this is all about. Efficiencies have come to play. You know?
And I want to reiterate, this is what you're telling me. This is the money that we're finding right here. This is not us spending it. This is them finding us this amount of money in our replacements, water leakage, stuff in our building. So they're telling us right here that they're going to find us $450,000.
We're telling you your utility bills will go down. Okay? The expectation is if you pay a utility bill that's that high today, and we clip that much off of it, this goes, it's a chunk of this. Okay? If you produce this much water, and because we stop some leaks and you can produce this much water, this savings is in that number. Okay? If your meter accuracy is here and it goes up to here, and you pick up water and sewer revenue, that's in that number. That's what's in that number. So we're finding the dollars inside of your current budgets. Yes. Make sense? Okay. Next slide, please. How do you get these upgrades? Next slide. First thing is there is legislation, Tennessee code, that says this is professional service work. You can go out and get it. So you have legislation to back it up. Next slide, please. Okay. What are the steps to go after it? Memorandum of understanding, done. AWWA water audit, we've done it. Preliminary review report, we just showed you that slide a couple slides back. The next step is a detailed engineering audit. We have to pull some meters. You've got to do some studies with some clamp-on ammeters and whatever other stuff that you do. Okay? That is covered under the project. It's important to tell you that by accounting standards, you still have to put a placeholder in your budget for that engineering study. You have to. You have to put that placeholder in there. You should never have to pay that bill. Why? We'll bring you back a project and you move forward. I will tell you, if we don't bring you back a project, then the bill goes away. We tear the bill. Right? Okay.
Yeah. You know, the money there is obviously, it's not money, it's not a fee. It's simply, if we decide not to move, if y'all decide not to move forward, when Robert and our team finishes our engineering, we just need to recoup some of the costs. It's important to note that that's not all of our cost. Our firm believes we need to come in and actually do some work to make sure we take care of it. But some of these things are hard assets, correct? I mean,
yeah, there'll be 100 and some small meters from 2-inch smaller replaced. Those are probably worth $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 right there, plus the labor to put them in. There'll also be large meters tested, some repaired if they can be repaired. That's also part of this number. So of that number, if you were to say, Johnson, thanks but no thanks, you're going to pick up at well over half of that in capital assets that you'd have had to buy yourself. Okay? Next step is the audit. Then we come back with the results. Then we bring you a contract. Then we install the efficiency improvements. Then we measure and verify for 3 years, which I showed you, or as long as you would like. Next page, please. If you were to do this yourself, and this is an eye chart, I'm sorry, it's an eye chart, but if you were to do this yourself, you can readily see the difference of doing it yourself versus somebody like Johnson Controls who does it quite frequently. Okay? First one is, it's a one-stop shop. We've done it so many times, we know how to do it, we're more efficient at it. You're going to have to self-learn. Do you replace meters? Yes, 200 of them a year. When's the last time you replaced 11,500? We're going to do it in a year. We're going to knock them all out in 1 year. Okay? It's a formalized process. We got books this thick because we've done it and learned and done and skinned our knees. And so we have a book that thick about the whole process of how to develop it and how to manage it. Okay? You'd be learning on your own. Okay? Purchasing, because we've done a lot of this, we can get parts cheaper than you. Therefore, some of our margin is built into that price. So what you would pay for a meter, we're going to pay less. That's profit you could never get anyways, if you see what my point. Okay? Risk. Your risk, if you did it yourself, you'd still have the manufacturer's warranty, but because you have multiple products, talking together, you could get caught in the finger pointing. With us, you have what I call one throat to choke. It's our responsibility to make sure it all works together and works well. And you have an HV update. Let me see, communication programs. We have communication programs we will share with you to make sure everybody in town understands what's going on. Okay? We have training programs both during the process and after. It's important that your folks are trained on the job as it's going in. We don't want to wait till the end and go, here it is, here's your 3 days of training, we're out of here. We will take your folks that you grant us, and they will go with the installation crews, and they'll learn on the fly. That's the best way to learn this, is to go out and watch it be installed and see how it works. Okay? Let me see, budget, no change orders, potential cost overruns. So I can't answer when the last time you guys have done a job and it came in on time under budget. I wouldn't know that. Okay? Ours has to. Thank you. How do you pay for it? Next slide, please. 2 ways. Either you got cash, which you'd be amazing if you did, because very seldom do I see cities this day sitting around on cash. Some, or you use other people's money, which everybody does. 2 primary funding sources for this that you might consider: revenue bonds or municipal tax exempt leases. Both vehicles are secured by our guarantee of the benefit from the project. We'll bring you different vendors that you can talk to, but you get to pick one. We make no money off the financing. We just want you to get the best rate available. Like I said, I've seen rates as low as, it's just crazy. It's like, what's the one?
Yeah, I mean, they're right at 2%. Everything.
Yeah.
And that's on a 15-year note. Anywhere between 2 and 2.2 that we've seen. One of your, just down the road, one of the cities, they just did 2.26 on a 15-year note.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. The only difference I would tell you currently, the last time I talked to one of the folks who does this, she actually told me that municipal leases were cheaper right now than revenue bonds because there's a fee associated with a revenue bond, and when you incorporate that fee, the municipal lease is cheaper. But we'll go through all that with you. But we'll bring in the partners. You'll talk, and unless you have a local finance agency that you want to use, your choice. Your choice. Next slide, please. That's really it. I know I did that at 1,000 miles an hour. I don't know any other way. I get a little nervous. So. Any questions?
What is the mayor's cost for a mayor? Do you have a cost for a unit?
We can do a cost. Here's the challenge. When you're replacing 6-inch turbines and 5/8 by 3/4 inch residential meters, we do averages. So what happens is the average will be a little bit confusing. If you want unit pricing, we could do that for you if you want. I mean, just the equipment themselves, and you're going to make me pull this out of a certain place. Yeah, I mean, like a radio is $100 and some, and a meter's like just under $100. Then you got labor and project management. I'm talking like for residential or something like that. It depends. There's electronic meters. You know, which one are you going to pick? Because I'm not going to pick your meter. We're going to educate you. We're going to go through an educate process. Then we're going to bring the manufacturers in, and you're going to pick the one that you like the best. There are certain electronic meters that are more expensive. They have no moving parts. You might want that. Okay, there's good and bad to every one of them, and we'll teach you all that.
On the billing process, okay, when we're talking about, when we go into our water billing, there is going to be a new setup in there, if you will. When I say setup, they've got to be able to monitor these. So there's got to be programs that go with that. Now, in that program, is that going to be where we can self-generate our bills? Or will that be able to hook into our Arista?
Well,
And Arista's, well,
actually, we need to be integrated into local government.
okay.
We have an older version of local government. I'm not sure if their system would integrate with our.
If it's, we just work with a system, local government, that I think there might just be, Robert's laughing because it was fun. There might be 3 other cities, or maybe just 2 in the state that still uses it. So if yours is older than that, they don't have anything older. So to answer, yeah.
Ours is not an old version. We're on FlexGen. I don't know if that makes any.
Good.
I mean, there wouldn't
We're
be.
not on NextGen, but we're on FlexGen.
There's about 300 different billing system companies. in the United States. The meter manufacturers and the AMI manufacturers are accustomed to interfacing to these systems. Generally, if you're using any kind of handheld process today, are you using Big Chief or are you using a handheld process?
Handheld.
Okay, so you send a route to a handheld. Okay, they go read a route, they come back, they plug it into a cradle, and up it goes. The process, what it does is it emulates that download to the cradle and that upload. That's all it is. It is a software routine that emulates that. The system will not be any different than it is today.
And then from local government, we send it to Arista. We create a file.
Correct. That doesn't change.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because we discussed that the other day.
Your other utilities are independent of those systems. Independent.
I want to mention something to the board, you can correct me if I'm wrong. On the cost savings that he's mentioned earlier, $400 and something thousand, I'm sure what he'll do is prove that he has saved manpower. He's reduced 5 men down to 2 men or whatever. So it's not going to be a savings to us unless we eliminate those positions.
That's a very good point. No, it's a very good point. It gets made everywhere we go. I would never recommend that you get rid of positions. I would never recommend that. Our job is to create efficiencies. What we're going to do is we're going to create a manpower pool of 3 people, let's say. Okay? Then we're going to sit down and we're going to say, what are you going to do with those 3 people? And if you say, man, I got all this deferred maintenance, he wants them right there. There you go. If you say, I got all this deferred maintenance and I can reduce overtime by having these people, then I'm going to take them over here and then you guys will assign a number to that. That is what in turn creates those 3 people. If you were to say have a retirement and choose not to refill that position, again, that's your choice. In fact, I thought I saw in your budget you were going to hire a position in a year or 2. Maybe if you had this manpower pool of 3, you could avoid that hire. So then the capital budget would then be part of this value.
Well, I'll tell you what Bruce and I discussed. If the board chooses to look at something on this magnitude, when we have positions to come open,
Right.
we
That
would
be the
hold
one.
those positions knowing that we were going into this program. So it wouldn't actually be keeping 5 extra when we have positions come open, like in public works, streets, parks and rec. We would hold, just not let them hire these positions until we would go over to this program, and then we would let those people choose to go into these open positions. So technically, if that works that way,
Yeah.
and we choose to do that, we would be
True.
eliminating
Right.
the position.
Yeah, I don't know your attrition rate. I know that meter readers in some cities are very high attrition rates. They're always turning over. I don't know if they are that way here. They may not be. They may not be. You know, I've seen places where it's all ex-military guys like me, a bunch of guys in gray hair who love being outside reading meters, okay? So that's the way they get their exercise. So what I'm trying to say there is if the minute you pull the trigger, it's going to take the year 14 months for this project to go in. So during that 14 months, if you normally have 1 or 2 or a position, there's one that might happen during that 14 months. You see what I'm saying? But you get to decide that. We're not going to decide that. We're just going to create an efficiency of 3 people. We're going to create a manpower pool. We just need some money to pay for it, and hopefully you can find it someplace. That's all.
And I mean, often, you know, we'll phase them in. The last job that Robert and I worked on, they said, hey, I want to phase those in. I don't want you to claim savings as if these people are not going to be moved into another department, or we're not going to have someone retire. And we did that over first year. We took, maybe after the installation was done, 1 person was claimed as a savings for that. The next one maybe another additional. So it gives you time to make sure. Obviously, the last thing we'd ever want is someone to lose a position.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the last thing we want you to do. Another question.
So does that answer? Does that?
Yes. I just wanted the board to be aware that unless we move those people to another position or eliminate that position, we're not really saving anything. So we have to, replace them with a position that's no longer, someone's left or whatever. But it won't be a savings if we just move
we
them from one
create a
department to another
position.
without, creating a position.
But if we
Also-
fill a position, that's different.
Right, that's different. I also want to ask how do you track the savings that you're talking about? If you're saying that you're going to generate more revenue, how do you track that? Because we automatically generate more revenue each year based on additional customers rate increases. So how is that tracked?
That's a really good question. When we're ready to do this, you're going to tell us what year was typical and repeatable. And it might be 2006, it might be 2011, it might be 2010. You got to pick one. You pick it. We don't pick it. You pick it. Don't pick a drought year. Don't pick a wet year. Okay? You said this is the year. That becomes the baseline. We'll get an extract in the billing system for all of the data for that year. Okay? We'll put it into our modeling tool. The modeling tool will we put the rates in there, and it'll virtually recreate every bill to make sure it's lined up with what virtually, I have a billing engine that mirrors your billing engine, if that makes any sense to you. Okay? Then we pull a statistic sample from that 9,500 population. We leave the other 2,000 alone. And we put that, we test it, we pull those meters, we test them, and we insert them back into this program, and we say, okay, if this is the year, and if these meters, which we tested, were 94, if they'd have been 98.5 or better % accurate, how much money would the city have made that year? And it creates a number. Okay? And then once we sit down and we show you all these numbers and how it all worked, we then guarantee the accuracy of the meter going forward. We can't guarantee whether people will move in and out of town. I know that's what you were thinking. I can't guarantee you that the carpet mill's going to close down or a new one's going to come to town. That's all on top of this. Okay? If you're a healthy city and it's a growing city, you're always going to make more money. You're exactly right. If you're changing rates, you're always going to make more money. We have to pick a baseline, just as Robert would do with lighting or anything else. You have to have a baseline, and that is what you base all your engineering on. Yes, ma'am. Keep them coming.
How
I am old,
How are
so take it
you
easy.
considering, how are you calculating, or what are you doing to do the utility savings? How is that savings generated?
Well, again, same thing. You have to have a baseline. Let's use this room for a model, and Robert's going to help me if I say something wrong, because this is his bag, not mine. Let's use this room. Robert's going to count all these fixtures, and he's going to ask somebody to give him a schedule of the use of this room. He's going to take that schedule plus current utility rates, okay, plus the consumption of these fixtures, and he's going to calculate the cost of lighting this room. Then he's going to say that, by your standard, that is how this room gets used 365 or the entire year. He's then going to determine, if I change that with a 5-watt savings fixture, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he'd count that times 5 at the current electricity rate, that's your savings.
So you're changing fixtures?
Correct.
Is that the only thing
Can I
you're
speak to
doing?
that? Let me speak to that for a minute. Yeah. Y'all have done a good job with a lighting retrofit project for most of your buildings in the city. Y'all are doing some good things. You've got, right there is a programmable thermostat on the wall. Y'all are doing some really good things. There's a few more things we can help you with along those lines. Some better control system perhaps for some of your larger buildings. The library is a building that I'd really like to get a hold of and look at. I think there's some real potential for energy savings there, for example. There's some water savings also in the buildings, conventional water savings with fixtures that are high flow fixtures. There's some opportunities for savings there. Traffic signals, on the 20 so intersections you have, maybe 3 or 4 are LED, and we'll be looking at that savings. Y'all have done a good job. I come into other cities, and this number would have been 60,000 or more, but you all have done a pretty good job. But there's still some opportunities out there with some lighting.
Are you doing anything with the heat and air units?
I'll be looking into those.
Because we're
Yes.
having some problems now with
Well,
some of the things
those
we
are some.
miss.
If we have enough savings, we can solve some of those issues.
Well, I mean, right now, NES is got us on an energy saving contract, and we're having some problems because they're burning up our units or burning up wires in our units because they've got contractors that don't know what they're doing.
Okay. It sounds like a little bit of liability with NES. So we can look into all that, but we would need to discuss that with you very thoroughly and take a. When we come back, I got to run through the buildings real quick. AC was so good to show me around, but when we come back, we'll get a real thorough approach, spend some time with each unit, make sure we have all the information, and then at that point, we'll look into that issue. But
I think to answer your question though around how we measure and verify that is an important question, because if we are doing lighting, for example, we are going to actually pull wattage from that light lamp. We're going to make sure we know what that is, and then when we're going to replace the lamps, and we're going to pull the wattage again to find out what that's burning. That's going to be a real time. Then we're going to also know, we'll place data loggers in here to find out how many hours a day this room is actually used. And that way we have an accurate number so we can let you know what the savings are.
And some occupancy sensors may also be appropriate for some areas.
Turn lights off and on.
Nobody's present. There's all kinds of things we need to look at.
There's all so much wonderful stuff we can do during the engineering study. If you have something in the capital budget that is just a dire need, but you got to schedule for 2 years from now, you have the potential to go look at that, pull it forward, tell us you want it in this project, and we could potentially find a way to put it in this project, even if we have to use savings from other equipment to fund that now, because you have a higher need. We can do that. No skate parks, please, but we can do that.
Another thing that we will do would be a measurement and verification workshop where we would sit down with you and explain how all the savings will be accounted for. And we'd sit down with you all and then go over all.
I know you got, that's it?
I do, but I'm sure I have a long list of them, but
Well, you can email me those questions. We can get those answers for you. Because obviously we want to make sure you're as comfortable with this as possible, because it's not something you want to jump into if you're not comfortable. I think that the answers we'll give you will be more than sufficient. It's hard to hit us when we haven't been asked.
And don't be shocked because they've all been asked.
Oh, yeah.
oh, I'm not shy.
You're a pretty good salesman.
You know what? We love doing this. We do. I hope it's obvious. We just love doing this because we get to take inefficiency and let it pay for its repair. I just think it's a blast, personally.
Any more questions?
I have discussion, questions.
Okay, any more questions from these guys, and we'll open it up for the board to have some discussion if you like. Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll open it up for discussion now.
Mayor, I think that they certainly have opened some eyes and ways to save some money, and everything sounds good. I guess my concern is our overall state of our whole water sewer program, where this fits in with priority. Again, we're talking after financing, just using their numbers, $5.5 million. We know where we are with some of our other problems. Quite honestly, I don't think it's a question that we can answer here in 10 minutes. I think it's something that we need to get Bill and Greg and Kyle and all of us together and really go over that capital plan. Again, I know there's some savings here, but at the same time, we all have other priorities, and I don't know that we have necessarily done that from one to whatever.
And I like where you're going with that, because we did sit down with Bill. All of us sat down, went over the list. We did change some of our priorities. However, I would like for this board to have a workshop.
We need it.
I would love to go over and hear from them what I heard, and to look at this list and let them explain to this entire board. And I don't mean a hurried up meeting. I mean, we have to sit here all afternoon long and making sure of everything that's going down. Like I said, we're in the process now. We feel we're pretty close to this pumping station across the interstate. I would love to see us sit down and have a true workshop focused totally on the water and sewer. And I would like to see it sooner than later. And I like what you said.
I totally agree. I just think there's so many things right now that are just unknown. We still have the litigation with the Corps that maybe a year, maybe two. Again, like you said, the pump station, we don't know what's happening with that. Last month Ralph Cross talked about borrowing money just so we don't run out of money in 2015 in the water sewer. So again, just to say 100% right now, I don't think that would be a smart move. I think we need to really look at what we need to do here. So I agree.
Can we plan a workshop? I know, give us plenty of time to advertise it. Give each one up here to find out what day would be. I know the next month is going to be really crazy, but we really do need to do that as soon as we can, get it advertised and find an afternoon that everybody's available. And get with these guys, of course, I know they've been hammered as well, and get with them, and I think that would be, I really like that, really like it. I'm so sorry. Do we have any other comments on that? But I certainly add this into that discussion. And get that, like I said, especially since we've talked and looked at that list. So I'll let Bruce, if you wanna, we'll look over some dates. Give everybody a call to see what's convenient for everyone. And really, I think we need another good workshop.
Yeah, we can do that.
Excellent, excellent.
And so this item would need to come off of the agenda for Tuesday
Right,
night.
right. Because like they said, we've got to have our plan of action down for them too. That'd be great. And work that into the capital. If that's, okay, is that, any more questions before we move on? And I don't think I have anybody else that's waiting to be on the agenda, so we'll just, we'll start at the top quickly. Again, let me remind everyone to please read over the minutes and make sure there's no mistakes in that. We'll have our departmental reports, and then we have our Employee of the Month, and then our Chief's Awards of Excellence. Old business, all of the ordinances with old business will have a public hearing. And I would like to also remind people about these ordinances. This is where where you balanced our budget. So that is a very good thing. I'll begin with second reading, ordinance 2012-15, an ordinance to amend the 2011-2012 fiscal year general fund budget. Any questions?
Phyllis, do you want to go over your revisions to this one?
I made one, was it one revision?
Okay.
Let me pull up the old version.
It was
on
on the
mine.
City Hall for insurance.
Right.
Do you happen to have the prior one, Bruce?
Well, I can't put it up on the screen
Okay.
from here, but
I did make one change. It was under the City Hall expenses. We had some additional insurance expense this year, and we had to do a budget amendment to accommodate that, and that was the only change. That was the $8,000 you see right there under City Hall. That's for property insurance and automobile and workers' comp.
you also changed the, I can't find it now. There's one other line item you changed.
Is it the fund balance for that, or?
I think it had to do with the proceeds from the capital note.
I don't remember changing anything there, Bruce.
We'll get that ironed out for Tuesday night.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Okay. Moving right along, second reading, ordinance 2012-16, an ordinance to amend the 2011-2012 fiscal year State Street Aid Fund budget. Any questions? Next, we have second reading, ordinance 2012-17, an ordinance to amend the 2011-2012 fiscal year senior citizens fund budget. Well, y'all are quiet bunch tonight. Those Johnson Control people scared them.
Yeah.
Scared ya. Okay. Have I missed one? Yes. Second reading, ordinance 2012-18, an ordinance to amend the 2011-2012 fiscal year drug fund budget. Okay, now y'all jump in here if y'all have any questions. Number 8, second reading, ordinance 2012-19, an ordinance to amend the 2011-2012 fiscal year library special revenue fund budget. Number 9, second reading, ordinance 2012-20, an ordinance to amend the 2011-2012 fiscal year stormwater fund budget.
On the stormwater, Phyllis, that was a decrease on that.
Yes. We're increasing the fund balance and decreasing expenses.
Number 10, second reading, ordinance 2012-21, an ordinance to amend the 2011-2012 fiscal year parks capital projects fund budget. Any questions? And number 11, second reading, ordinance 2012-22, an ordinance to amend 2011-2012 fiscal year water and sewer fund budget. Okay, any questions? And again, we're talking about balancing our budget, which we have done. So. All right, number 12, motion to approve the paving of streets in Pinnacle Point, Phase 1. Kyle, you want to take this?
I guess it's basically just a continuation last month on what was considered a private drive, whether or not we want to pave that portion or if the council does not want to pave that portion.
If memory serves me, I believe we just took the vote to fix the public right-of-way.
Correct. And we've still got this other issue, whether we want to pave this or not.
I made a motion to defer on this and give the developer a month to make good on some of his potential claims, to take care of the private drive, the sidewalks, and so on. Have we heard back from him at all? Or?
We've heard a little bit. Evan could probably speak more on of what's been discussed.
Yeah, I've spoken with your attorney, and I have been advised that they do intend to make good on it. We are in the process of talking about ways to make that happen, where we are in a legally binding scenario where we can force it to happen without too much grief to the city. So I can update you further when I have more information, but that's kind of where it stands now. I think it's the right thing to do to defer at this point.
Okay. We'll definitely do that. Please make that public. All right. Do I have any more comments or concerns on that
Just a
matter?
question I have, what kind of time frame were they talking? Is that still being worked out?
All right, let's move on to our consent agenda items. A, approve recommendations for city bids and purchases, state bid pricing, police pursuit vehicles. Chief, you want to take that? You know?
When the board voted on it month before last, or last month,
I think it was 2.
2 months ago, I believe, to go ahead and approve the specifications, et cetera, to put the bids out for the vehicles for the current fiscal year that we're in now.
Right.
There's 10 total vehicles. We were going to go back out. Rather than do that, this actually moves it over to using the state bid because we actually get a better overall price using the state bid, the statewide contract, rather than us doing it just ourselves,
Okay.
which
And
makes a lot of sense.
These are budgeted items. So,
Right.
we'll go on. Proposal, trade, purchase of handguns for the police department.
As you can see, we had Craig's Firearms come in. Craig's is the dealer within Tennessee that Glock uses to provide governmental entities pricing and servicing of handguns, et cetera, and selling. With 60 total handguns, which would be each commission member and projected members down the road, plus having 4 or 5 spare. With 60 of those, that's a total price of $28,140, and this is the Gen 4 handgun, which is a much better quality model weapon than what we currently have now, which is about 10 years old. And as I explained before, we're having issues with some of these handguns. Parts and pieces are beginning to have issues. Locking up, et cetera, or stovepiping tremendously while you're out there in a firing situation. The pistols we have, they have agreed to give us $310 a piece as a trade-in cost for those. And then we have 53 weapons that have been awarded to us by the court that it's sale or trade for ammunition, other weapons, et cetera, under Tennessee Code Annotated. We're permitted to do that. And by trading those, that's an additional $3,470. So as you can see, the bottom line for 60 handguns is $6,070, which is a few cents more than $101 a piece.
That's phenomenal. That is a good deal. Very
What draws my attention, why would they want, if the gun we got is not recommended, not good for us, why would they want,
It's a difference for them to sell you a used law enforcement weapon than it is for a law enforcement officer to carry a used law enforcement weapon. If you're out there doing target practice of 15 or 20 rounds, well, I don't know, you probably wouldn't shoot more than 5 because they cost a lot of money a piece, but that's a joke, Dennis. With us, we have to shoot several hundreds of rounds annually. When that occurs and these things begin breaking down, there's a difference in you having one at your place of business and having that potential down there and maybe a spring breaking or whatever, and one of our officers being out there in a situation going in on a domestic where there is a firearm and having to use the weapon. That's why they're willing to give us, because they're going to make their money back. They're going to sell those guns out there. But as far as us carrying them, when we pump as many rounds as we do through these weapons, 10-year is the max life expectancy for a useful handgun for a law enforcement officer. That's kind of like the difference in you can go get a handgun carry permit. You can qualify with a .22 revolver, and then you can carry a .44 Super Blackhawk, .44 Magnum if you want to, or you can carry a .45 or whatever. You never have to go back and qualify again, ever. You can get it when you're 21 years old and live till you're 91 and never have to go back and requalify. With law enforcement officers, we have to shoot regularly, and we have to qualify a minimum of once every year. We have to go through the law portion of it. We have to do the shooting portion of it. So we shoot on the average, the majority of our officers shoot on the average of between 600 and 1,000 rounds, depending on what they do. If they're on SWAT, they shoot more because they're required to do the SWAT training a minimum of 8 hours per month. And we expect them to be much more proficient even than the regular patrol officer on the street. I think it's an awesome deal, personally.
It is an awesome deal. Because I know what I paid for my little 32. And that's nothing compared to these.
It's almost like a BB gun.
Hey, but it's small. Okay. Number 3, repairs to the sewer department high-pressure line cleaner.
Mayor, last month, Mr. Zemlo had taken the jetter in for repairs, and they had spent a total of $4,447. But there were additional repairs that were needed to be done at that time, but it would have taken it over that $5,000 limit. So I requested that they bring it in to this board. There's additional repairs in the amount of $2,166.84 that they need to make, and that's why we're bringing this to the board at this time, because that would have taken it over the $5,000 amount that we can do without board approval. So that's what this is.
Any questions? Questions? Jerry, you have any comments? Anything you want to add?
No, just repairs that were unforeseen until we actually tore the machine down.
Okay. All right. Number 4, GSA pricing, copy machine lease for the police department.
Back in June, this board approved a lease agreement for a copy machine / printer for the police department. It was a black and white unit. Once they installed it, the police department decided they needed a color unit instead. This is the color equivalent of it. I think it's $14 more per month to go with this version, but we have to have the new lease approved in order to do that. So that's what this is.
Okay. Any questions? All right, moving right along. All right, B. Approve an application for a roadblock to be conducted for the Smyrna Laverne Assistance Coalition from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on September 8, 2012, with a rain date of September 29, 2012, at the intersection of Murfreesboro Road and Stones River Road. I think this is a very worthy
It is.
cause.
Very.
I think this is something very, very good. Anybody that wishes to help with this, they would certainly appreciate any help from this board. I know the women are all going to be tied up because that's the day of all of our pageants. So we will be at the high school with all the beauties. So, but anyone that wishes to help, I'm sure that they would certainly appreciate any help that they can get from anybody from this board. All right, C, approve an application for a roadblock to be conducted for the Shrine Hospitals for Children from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on October the 6th, 2012, with a rain date of October 13th, 2012, at the intersection of Murfreesboro Road and Stones River Road. Again, I think this is another fabulous group that does a lot of good to the community.
And one was approved for this group a few months ago, but because of the high heat, they ended up having to cancel it. So this is basically a rescheduling of that roadblock.
Okay. All right. Make sure. D, approve Amendment 1 to the agreement with Wiser Company for the design of the Hurricane Creek Greenway project.
Mayor and Board, this is a contract basically from Wiser. The reason why it's an amendment is back in 2001, we city had entered into a contract with them to start the Hurricane Creek Greenway project, which is the greenway going from City Hall back to the roundabout, or I don't think it went that far at that time, but that's the projected path. They had done some plans, done some work, and got so far, you know, they did get so far, but we never did move forward. Now that we have money and we put this in the budget and everything, now we're ready to move forward. We needed to get a contract amendment so we can have some values in place for budget-wise and just at least get the project going. This is basically what this is. Evan has reviewed the contract. I know everyone will be worried about the cost of it. In attachment A, which has the cost, starts on page 14. It'll tell the scope of the services that Wiser will provide, and then on page 16 is the cost. And they're estimating a 6 months construction time of that project once they get to that phase, is what they're using for the cost estimate. And that's important on the CEI services, because if we get into it and we do a lot of design and they change it to an 8 month construction cost or 8 months construction time frame, we may have to go back and revise this contract again, because the CEI services really is based on how many months they're going to be out there with the construction going on.
And again, this is money that has been sitting there since the early 2000, late 99, 2000.
It's 99,
Yeah. So it's time to move, get it done, get it over with. So, any questions? All right, E, approve change order 1 for the Fergus Road sidewalk project.
Mayor and Board, this is basically when we got out there and got started on construction. There is a drainage structure that it's at the entrance of the park. Actually, we had two corrugated metal pipes that had been crushed on both ends that we had to get removed and replaced. And in doing that, the cost for the change order would be $2,200, roughly it's $2,220 added to the contract, and it's still way under budget at this point in time.
That's looking so good.
Why have they quit working?
Mark, the subcontractor is the one who's kind of stopped at this point. I know the actual Sessions is the contractor, and they had a piece of equipment that broke down working right there next to the creek doing the footer for the bridge. But Mark Orr is the subcontractor that was doing the sidewalks, and they're doing other jobs right now. I reckon they had a whole bunch of jobs that may have had some deadlines that they're trying to meet. We have been contacting them to see when they're going to come back out there, and we did send an email today to see if we can get a response from actually Sessions of when they're coming back. We have not heard back yet on that though.
So they were moving really quick, just quit for about 2 weeks now.
I wish they had picked a better time to stop instead of having the driveway blocked that they have at the park.
Again,
But we're trying to get them back out there as soon as
I was
possible.
just curious.
I know, we're all ready for all these projects that we've had for years. We're ready to get these finished, get them done, get them over with. All right. And F, approve online auction of surplus equipment and vehicles.
These are the vehicles that we have, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Alderman, where at the top of the list, you'll see it's not actually,
It's none of
well,
yours.
no, that's,
Yours were approved last month.
mine were approved last month, okay.
Yeah, you're
These-
good.
All right.
These
All right,
are-
I'll wait till next month to ask for the helicopter then.
These are public works vehicles. I think most of these are street department, and then various equipment from public works, and also several items from the library that are no longer needed. So that's what's on the list for this month.
I'm sorry, I apologize for coughing.
There's something going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's everywhere.
Okay, I'm sorry, I hope everybody could hear over my coughing. All right, any questions on that? If y'all don't mind, let's get through, can we get through just a couple of more and then we'll retire for just a few minutes? I know food is here and we got several more big discussion items, so let's get through some of these simple ones. Motion to appoint or remove board members. We do have a position open on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. I have talked to a few of the business owners around here. invited them to certainly maybe even come and see what we do at the Economic Development Board. I think we've cornered a few people, and they're certainly looking at their schedules. A lot of course, our business people are extremely busy, and but we're trying to get some local business owners to get involved in the economic development, and they were really excited even to talk to us about it. So we may have somebody by Tuesday, and if not, they may be wanting to come to visit the board first before they you know, say that they'll do it. Any questions? Let's go to number 15, first reading, ordinance 2012-23, an ordinance to amend the 2012-2013 fiscal year water sewer fund budget and capital plan for the interstate pump station project.
Mayor, if you'll remember last month, the bid was awarded for this project, but we only had, I think it was $100,000 in the budget for this item. This is the budget amendment to pay for the remainder of that project, and it also amends the capital plan for it as well. So,
And we're still okay on our sewer and our budgets and everything. Okay. Any questions on this?
So where's the extra money coming out of?
We're reducing another capital project, the
Hurricane Creek.
project at Hurricane Creek Pump Station, which has a budget of around 500, and we're reducing that by the 165.
And let's remember, anything that comes from water and sewer has to come from the water and sewer budget. None of that ever comes from general fund. It strictly comes from our water and sewer budget, and that's the only thing that can pay for it, is water and sewer. Number 16, first reading, ordinance 2012-24, an ordinance to amend the 2012-2013 fiscal year state street aid fund budget and capital plan for a street department dump truck and snow removal equipment.
This is also resulting from an item that was approved, I think it was last month or month before, I can't remember which. Basically, we're amending the state street aid fund to allow for the purchase of this equipment.
Okay. And again, this kind of, like I said, the big thing with this, it's coming off of the state street aid, which the price is phenomenally lower. And that's a full, ready to go piece of equipment. That's not piecing it together. And we all know, the ones of us, Chris, Tom, that was out having to follow in our own vehicles. We were out having to follow the scrapers because our dump trucks and our snow plows were down. So they were having to use, what was it? Backhoes to scrape the roads. And a lot of us were behind them in our own vehicles for their safety. So we've all been down through those roads, and it was not a pretty sight. All right. If y'all would like, it is 6:15. If y'all would like to take, I know we've been sitting here for a few minutes. We've got some big discussion items coming that we'll need to discuss in great detail. So at this time, if we can, let's take about a 15 or 20-minute break, and then we'll come back and be ready to work on the rest of the items.